It was a normal afternoon at a well-known public gym in Los Angeles. The place was packed, weights clanking, treadmills humming, music blasting through the speakers. People were busy with their routines, but everything changed the moment JakePaul walked in. He wasn't loud. He wasn't showing off. He wasn't even filming content. Jake entered quietly, hoodie on, headphones around his neck, simply ready for a normal training session. He had been working hard behind the scenes for his upcoming fight, and today was supposed to be just another focused workout. But someone in the gym had other plans. Near the dumbbell racks stood a huge bodybuilder, muscles thicker than tree trunks, veins popping, shirt 2 sizes too small. He was known around this gym for one thing: his ego. He loved attention, and when he didn't get it, he created it. The moment he saw Jake walk in, he stopped mid-set, smirked, and loudly said, "Yo, no way. Is that JakePaul? Bro, look at those tiny arms." His voice echoed across the gym. People turned their heads instantly. A group of guys by the squat rack began whispering. A couple of girls near the treadmills pulled out their phones. Everyone could feel the tension forming in the air. Jake heard the comment, but he didn't react. He placed his gym bag on the bench calmly, stretched his arms, and kept his focus forward. No eye contact, no response, but that annoyed the bodybuilder even more. He stepped closer, laughing exaggeratedly, flexing his massive biceps like he was on a stage. "Come on, bro. You're a boxer? With arms like that?" He pointed directly at Jake, making it as humiliating as possible. You could hear chuckles spreading across the gym. People weren't laughing because they hated Jake. They were laughing because the bodybuilder was making a scene. Jake finally looked up, not angry, not insecure, just calm. He took a slow breath and smiled politely. But behind that smile, there was something else, a quiet confidence the bodybuilder clearly didn't recognize. Because what was about to happen would silence the entire gym in seconds. To be continued. The gym had already shifted its energy. What was supposed to be an ordinary training day turned into an uncomfortable spectacle, all because one oversized ego wanted attention. JakePaul continued loosening up his shoulders, rotating his wrists, stretching his neck. His face remained calm, but the entire gym could feel the bodybuilder's arrogance growing like a storm cloud. The bodybuilder wasn't done. Oh no, this was just the beginning for him. He strutted across the gym floor like he owned the place, his heavy boots thudding against the rubber mats. "HEY, you two boy," he yelled, loud enough for half the gym to hear. "Need me to show you how real men lift weights?" People turned again. Some smirked. Some shook their heads. Some just watched silently, sensing something big was about to happen. Jake removed his hoodie, revealing a lean, sharp, athletic physique. Not massive like a bodybuilder, but sculpted, explosive, dangerous. Still, the bodybuilder snorted. "Huh, that's it," he mocked, grabbing a pair of heavy dumbbells. "Watch closely, little man. I'll teach you what real strength looks like." He heaved the dumbbells aggressively, grunting dramatically, drawing attention on purpose. He slammed them down so hard that the whole rack shook. Jake didn't even look at him. He simply adjusted his wrist wraps and began warming up with light dumbbells, focusing on form, not showmanship. And that's what irritated the bodybuilder the most. The fact that Jake didn't react, didn't argue, didn't even acknowledge him. To an ego-driven man, silence is the ultimate insult. "HEY," the bodybuilder shouted again, walking closer. "Don't ignore me, bro. Come on, let's see what you got." Jake paused his reps. He slowly lifted his eyes, and with a calm, almost tired voice, he said, "I'm just here to train, man. Let's keep it respectful." Respectful. That single word stung the bodybuilder harder than any punch Jake could throw. "Oh ho ho, Mr. Boxer wants respect," he mocked loudly, waving his arms like a clown. Bro, you're in the wrong gym. Here, size matters. A few people laughed, but not because they agreed. Most were just uncomfortable. Everyone knew the bodybuilder was going too far. A gym employee whispered to another. This guy again, always starting drama. The bodybuilder tried to make the crowd laugh more. He exaggeratedly held up his pinky finger. Guys, look, JakePaul's arm size. Laughter echoed. Phones came out, and more people began recording. Jake exhaled slowly. He wasn't angry. He wasn't embarrassed. He had been mocked before, underestimated before, doubted before. This was nothing new. He simply placed his weights down and moved toward the bench press area. That's when the bodybuilder blocked his path. Towering over him like a mountain of muscle, he said, "Where you going? You scared I'll embarrass you?" Jake looked up, not intimidated, just tired of the nonsense. "No," he said softly. "I'm going to lift. That's why I'm here." The gym fell silent, a moment of calm before the next storm. But the bodybuilder couldn't allow calm. His ego demanded a spectacle. He stood in front of Jake's bench, puffing his chest. "You want to lift? Fine. Lift with me. Same weight. Right here. Right now." Jake raised an eyebrow, as if assessing whether this challenge was even worth acknowledging. But before he could answer, the bodybuilder pointed at the crowd and yelled, "Everyone watch. Let's see if the big YouTuber can even handle half of what I lift." Cameras lifted higher. People leaned in closer. The entire gym's attention locked on them. Jake still didn't speak. He simply sat down on the bench, adjusting his breathing. The bodybuilder smirked and loaded the bar with heavy plates, much more than the average gym-goer could attempt. "This is a warm-up for me," he bragged, slapping the plates loudly. "Let's see if JakePaul can even unrack it." He got under the bar, grunted, and pushed with all his might. His face turned red. Veins bulged. He struggled, but he managed to complete a few shaky reps. He racked the bar with a loud clang and roared triumphantly, raising his arms like he'd won a championship title. He turned to Jake. "Your turn, little man." Jake didn't rush. He didn't posture. He didn't talk. He just walked up to the bar, chalked his hands, and laid down with calm confidence. The crowd leaned forward. The bodybuilder folded his arms, expecting Jake to fail, absolutely certain of it. But before Jake began, he looked at the crowd and said in a quiet voice, "Some people talk big. Some people lift big. Some people let the weight speak for them." And with that, Jake lifted the bar. Smoothly, effortlessly, controlled, perfect form. The crowd murmured in shock. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Wait, he's lifting it better than the bodybuilder. Bro, what?" No shaking, zero struggle. But the bodybuilder wasn't shocked yet. He still believed Jake couldn't outperform him. He didn't know what was coming. Have you ever seen someone bullied at the gym before? And where are you watching from? Which country or city? Drop it in the comments. Jake racked the bar gently, then quietly added more weight. Gasps filled the room. The bodybuilder's eyes widened. "It's too heavy," he muttered. He won't even lift it off the rack. But he was wrong, because Jake wasn't done proving himself. He was just getting started. The gym was buzzing louder than before. The air felt heavier, thicker, like everyone could sense something big was about to happen. JakePaul stood calm, rolling his shoulders, while the bodybuilder, still smirking, cracked his knuckles like he was preparing for a professional showdown. But deep inside, something had changed. A tiny flicker of doubt. A small crack in his confidence. The laughter he had moments ago wasn't as loud now. His eyes kept shifting from Jake's face, to Jake's arms, to Jake's posture. The gym giant had expected Jake to back off, maybe even walk out, but instead Jake was standing tall, relaxed, and unbothered. And that bothered him. "Bro, you really think those arms can take me?" The bodybuilder said, voice slightly less confident than before. Jake smiled. "You'd be surprised what these arms can do." That line hit the gym like a shockwave. A couple of guys dropped their dumbbells, whispering to each other. One trainer stopped mid-rep, just staring. Even the girl on the treadmill paused her machine. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. The bodybuilder forced a laugh, louder than necessary, trying to reclaim control. "All right, tough guy. he said. Let's test those little noodles. Jake shrugged. Pick the challenge. The giant thought for a moment. He wanted something impossible. Something that would embarrass Jake instantly. So he walked over to the heavy dumbbell rack and grabbed the 120-pound dumbbells, one in each hand. A few people gasped. Nobody uses those except him, one guy whispered. The bodybuilder smirked and tossed the dumbbells at Jake's feet. 3 perfect reps, he said, but you can't even lift them. Jake didn't answer. He just crouched down, gripped the handles, and slowly pulled the dumbbells off the floor. The gym went silent. Dead silent. Jake lifted them with surprising control. No shaking, no struggling. His arms flexed, his posture locked in, his core tightened. He started the first rep. Up, down. Perfect. Second rep. Up, down. Smooth. The bodybuilder's jaw dropped. Third rep. Jake paused midway just to make a point, then lowered them gently, placing them back on the rubber floor. The entire gym exploded in reactions, shouts, gasps, whistles. Someone yelled, "No way." Another shouted, "Bro, Jake is built." The bodybuilder couldn't believe what he'd just seen. His confidence wasn't cracked anymore, it was shattered. He stepped backward slightly, eyes wide, chest deflating just a little. You've been training heavy?" he asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. Jake chuckled. "I've been training smart." And that line, simple, calm, clean, hit harder than any punch. The bodybuilder wasn't done yet, though. His pride wouldn't let him quit. So he stormed over to a cable machine and pointed. "Fine, try this then." Cable fly stack, full weight. The full stack was insane. Most people couldn't even move half of it. The giant had chosen something that required not just strength, but control. Jake nodded. He grabbed the handles, stepped forward, and the moment he flexed, the gym froze again. His arms weren't small. They were compact, conditioned, explosive. Every vein lit up. The muscles tightened like steel ropes. Jake pulled the weight forward, holding, squeezing, full extension. A couple of guys recorded it secretly on their phones. Jake finished 10 clean reps. 10. The bodybuilder took a step back. His face was losing color. His breathing became shallow. This tiny arms joke wasn't funny anymore. He looked around as if hoping someone would confirm he wasn't seeing things. But everyone had the same expression. JakePaul is actually strong. The giant was out of cards, out of jokes, out of confidence. Sweat formed on his forehead, not from exercise, but from embarrassment. Jake walked toward him slowly, not intimidating, not aggressive, just confident. "You good?" he asked. The bodybuilder swallowed hard and nodded. "Yeah, I just didn't expect that." Jake gave a friendly tap on his arm. "Don't judge a fighter by measurements. Judge by discipline." The crowd reacted again, impressed by the calm wisdom. The bodybuilder tried to smile, but the humiliation was written all over him. His earlier words echoed back like a slap. Tiny arms. Now, those words were haunting him. Jake turned to leave, but before he walked away, he added one final line. "You don't have to be the biggest in the gym to be the strongest in a room." That line hit the giant harder than any dumbbell. The gym was no longer just a place filled with weights and machines. It had turned into an arena, and JakePaul was at the center of it. The bodybuilder, now visibly shaken, tried to regain even a sliver of dignity. But the people around them had already sensed the shift. The giant was no longer the threat. Jake was. But ego is a dangerous thing. And this bodybuilder had a mountain-sized ego. "All right," he said, forcing confidence back into his voice. "Strength is one thing. But what about conditioning? What about endurance?" Jake tilted his head slightly. "What about it?" The bodybuilder smirked, a desperate smirk, like he had one last trick. "Let's see what you're really made of. We'll do a burnout challenge. Non-stop kettlebell swings. 1 minute. Whoever quits first loses." The crowd murmured. The 1-minute burnout challenge was brutal, even for pros. It wasn't about strength. It was about lungs, stamina, grit. Jake simply nodded. "Let's do it." The gym adjusted around them. People moved benches and mats to make space. Phones came out, ready to record. This wasn't just a gym moment anymore. It was a showdown. 2 heavy kettlebells were placed side by side. The bodybuilder grabbed his. Jake grabbed his. A trainer stepped forward to count. "Ready. 3, 2, 1, go. Both men swung the kettlebells with force, power slicing through the air. The crowd watched, silent but electric. At first, the bodybuilder looked confident. His swings were fast, powerful, explosive. Jake, on the other hand, swung with controlled rhythm. Not rushed, not panicked, just steady. 10 seconds in, the giant was still ahead. 20 seconds in, Jake hadn't slowed down. 30 seconds in, the bodybuilder's breathing started to spike. His swings got heavier, sloppier, messier. Jake looked the same. Focused, calm, breathing in perfect rhythm. The bodybuilder's arms trembled. Sweat dripped down his face. He looked at the timer. Only 40 seconds? His chest started burning like fire. His lungs felt tight. Meanwhile, Jake increased his pace, slightly, almost casually, as if he were just getting warmed up. At 50 seconds, the bodybuilder made a sound, a small grunt he didn't mean to let out. His grip slipped for half a second. The kettlebell nearly dropped. Someone in the back whispered, "He's done. He's done." The timer hit 58 seconds. Then it happened. The bodybuilder's hand finally gave out. The kettlebell slipped. It hit the floor with a loud metallic thud that echoed around the gym. Jake didn't stop. He kept swinging until time. Jake gently set his kettlebell down, not even breathing heavily. He looked fresh, calm, almost unfazed. The bodybuilder bent over, hands on knees, gasping for air. The crowd erupted. Brute. No way Jake won the endurance too. He destroyed him. The giant's face was red, not from effort, but from embarrassment. This wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to be the one losing. Not here. Not in his gym. He stood up slowly, still struggling to breathe. That wasn't bad, he forced out between gasps. Jake smiled politely. You good? The giant raised a hand to wave him off, embarrassed. Yeah, just tired. Jake nodded. Endurance matters. Strength fades. Discipline doesn't. That line hit the entire gym like a motivational punch. But the humiliation wasn't over yet. A young guy from the crowd stepped forward and said what everyone was thinking. Dude, you called him tiny arms. You sure you want to keep going? The bodybuilder's mouth tightened. His pride wanted to challenge again. His body could barely stand. Jake walked forward slowly, calm, confident, in control. You don't have to prove anything else, Jake said. This isn't a fight. It's a misunderstanding. But then he added something that changed the entire tone. Unless you still think these arms are tiny. The crowd reacted instantly. Screams, whistles, laughter. The atmosphere exploded. The bodybuilder froze. His face drained. He knew he couldn't challenge again. Not after losing twice. Not in front of everyone. He swallowed his pride, looked around at the faces waiting for his next move, then finally said, No, they're not tiny. A wave of applause filled the gym. Finally, the truth. Jake nodded respectfully. Good. Because strength isn't measured by size. It's measured by work. The bodybuilder slowly extended his hand. A handshake he didn't want to give but had to. Jake shook it. The giant whispered so only Jake could hear. Respect, brother. I judged you wrong. Jake replied, Happens. We all make mistakes. The bodybuilder nodded, defeated but humbled. But the moment wasn't over yet. Jake turned to the crowd and said, All right, who's next? The gym erupted into chaos. Everyone laughed and cheered, knowing the statement was purely playful. But the message behind it was powerful. JakePaul wasn't just confident. He was dominant, and he had earned every ounce of respect in that room. The gym was still buzzing with excitement after Jake's domination in both strength and endurance. People were replaying clips on their phones, showing their friends, whispering about the moment the kettlebell slipped from the bodybuilder's hands. But while the crowd celebrated, the bodybuilder himself stood quietly off to the side, head lowered, hands on his hips, breathing slowing back to normal. Something about him had changed. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was thinking. Jake walked over to grab a towel from his bag, and in that moment, the bodybuilder followed him, not with aggression, but with a slow, heavy step that carried weight far beyond muscle. Hey, the giant said quietly. Jake turned. Yeah. The bodybuilder swallowed. His jaw clenched like he was fighting the hardest battle of the day, but not against Jake. Against his own ego. I need to say something. The gym hushed again. People turned, phones lowered. This was unexpected. The giant took a slow breath. I messed up. His voice cracked slightly. I judged you by your size. I thought you were just some internet kid pretending to be tough. I didn't expect all this. Jake didn't respond. He just listened. The bodybuilder continued. You know, all my life, people treated me like I was only good for one thing. He pointed his arms. These. Muscles. Show. Performance. Size. It became everything I am. He paused to steady himself. But when I saw you walk in, small compared to me, something inside me felt threatened. Like, if someone smaller could beat me at something, it meant I wasn't good enough. So I tried to embarrass you before you could make me look weak. This time, there was no acting, no ego, no performance, just truth. The gym was silent. Jake gently placed the towel on the bench. Look, he said, I get it. People underestimate me all the time, too. Happens every fight, every gym I walk into, every interview I do. The bodybuilder looked surprised. Really? Yeah, Jake nodded. They see the YouTube guy, the entertainer, the loudmouth, not the one who trains 6 hours a day. Not the one who sacrifices. Not the one who works when nobody's watching. The bodybuilder's eyes softened. Jake continued, but the way we handle being misunderstood, that defines us. Some people let it break them. Some people overcompensate. And some people, Jake paused, nodding at the giant, learn from it. Something about those words landed deeply. The giant lowered his head. I'm sorry for disrespecting you. You didn't deserve that. Jake nodded. Thank you. But then Jake did something nobody expected. He placed a hand on the giant's shoulder. You're strong, really strong, but strength without discipline. He paused. It becomes insecurity. A few people whispered, damn, but respectfully. Jake continued. You don't need to tear people down to prove you're strong. You just proved your strength in deeper ways by apologizing. The bodybuilder blinked. Nobody had ever spoken to him like that, especially not someone smaller, younger, and lighter. It wasn't an insult. It wasn't a lecture. It was guidance. The giant wiped sweat off his forehead. Man, nobody ever told me that. They just hyped me up because of my size. But you're right. Jake smiled. And look, if you ever want to train together, I'd be down. The bodybuilder froze. Wait, you serious? Of course, Jake said. Everyone starts somewhere. Everyone grows. And you? You've got power. Imagine what your potential could be if your mind was as disciplined as your body. The giant's throat tightened slightly. Bro, that means more than you know. And then something incredible happened. The crowd, the same people who earlier laughed at Jake, started clapping. Slowly at first, then louder. Not for Jake beating the bodybuilder, but for the moment the giant opened up. For the transformation they were witnessing. The bodybuilder turned to them, overwhelmed but trying not to show it. He gave a small nod. Jake stepped forward and said, Look, strength comes in many forms. Muscles fade. Fame fades. But character? That stays. The room vibrated with that message. A young kid in the back shouted, Yo, Jake. That line was fire. Everyone laughed, even the bodybuilder. Jake added, If today proved anything, it's this. Never judge, never underestimate, and never stop learning. The giant held out his hand again, but this time it wasn't a handshake of defeat. It was a handshake of respect and gratitude. Jake shook it firmly, and right at that moment, someone from the crowd raised their phone and said loudly, This is going viral. The crowd cheered, and in that gym, surrounded by sweat, iron, and the smell of redemption, a bully wasn't defeated. He was transformed. By the time the handshake ended, nearly half the gym had their phones out, recording every angle, every word, every interaction. Clips of Jake overpowering the bodybuilder, outlasting him in the endurance challenge, and finally humbling him with wisdom were already being shared online in real time. But nobody could predict what would happen next. The gym's manager, a tall, average-looking guy in his 40s with glasses and a clipboard, rushed onto the scene. His face was red, partly from running, partly from shock. What's going on here? He demanded, looking directly at the bodybuilder. I'm getting reports, multiple reports, that you were verbally harassing a guest. Again, the crowd went quiet. Jake raised his hand. It's okay. We handled it. But the manager shook his head. No, Jake. It's not okay. This is the third time this month he's caused problems. The bodybuilder's face paled. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The manager continued, stern. You nearly caused a fight last week with another guy. The week before, you blocked someone from using equipment because you didn't like his form. And today, you publicly mocked and challenged a guest. He turned toward the crowd. This gym is supposed to be a safe place for everyone. Respect comes first. People nodded. Some even murmured in agreement. The bodybuilder swallowed. Hard. He wasn't angry now. He wasn't even defensive. He was scared. Look, the manager continued, I've tried warnings. I've tried suspensions. But this... Jake stepped forward. Hold on. The manager paused. Jake, I appreciate you standing up, but this is serious. Gym rules. But Jake gently interrupted. Let me speak to him first. The manager hesitated, then nodded slowly. Jake turned to the giant. The man who had insulted him, challenged him, and almost started a fight. Listen, Jake said in a steady voice, you made mistakes. Yeah, but today, you also did something most people never do. The giant lifted his head slightly. You apologized, in front of everyone. You admitted your insecurity. You faced yourself. Jake looked around the room as he spoke. That takes strength. More strength than lifting weights. More strength than swinging kettlebells. Real strength. A few people murmured, facts, true, he's right. Jake continued, louder this time. Punishing someone doesn't always fix the problem. Sometimes what they need is guidance, a chance to grow. The bodybuilder's eyes softened. It was rare for anyone to defend him. Even rarer for someone he had tried to humiliate. The manager crossed his arms, considering Jake's words. Jake, he said, I hear you, but rules are rules. Jake nodded, then changed the rule today. Let today be about growth, not punishment. The room was silent. Everyone waited. The manager sighed deeply. All right, I'll give him one last chance. But only because you asked. The bodybuilder exhaled in relief, but Jake wasn't done. Wait, Jake said. On one condition. The giant tensed again. Jake pointed to the bench press area. You train with me. The gym gasped. You want me to train with you? The giant asked, confused. Jake nodded. Yeah, you and me. Not as rivals. As partners. I'll teach you discipline, conditioning, mindset. And you teach me something too. The giant blinked. Teach you what? Jake smiled. How to lift a house. The crowd burst into laughter, warm, wholesome laughter. Even the giant cracked a shy smile. That, I can do. Jake continued. But if you keep bullying people, if you disrespect anyone ever again, I'll personally ask the manager to ban you for life. And I won't defend you next time. It was firm, clear, no softness in that line. The giant nodded instantly. I swear, no more bullying. No more ego. I'm done with that. Jake extended his fist. The giant tapped it gently, almost respectfully, like touching something fragile. And then something unexpected happened. A stranger from the crowd stepped up. Jake, this is already blowing up online. Look, he held out his phone. Hundreds of thousands of views. Tens of thousands of comments. The words trending at the top. JakePaul humbles a bodybuilder. Big guy apologizes publicly. Respect. Jake handled this like a champ. The bodybuilder stared in disbelief. His humiliation and his transformation were now public. Jake looked at him calmly. Look, man, this could destroy you or it could rebuild you. Depends what you do next. The giant took a long breath. I'll rebuild. I promise. Jake nodded. Good. Let's start right now. He clapped his hands. All right. Warm-up set. Lightweight. We're focusing on form and discipline. The giant followed him like a student following a teacher. The crowd parted as they walked, not with fear or mockery, but with respect. Phones lowered. Noise settled. The gym returned to normal, but something in the atmosphere had changed. Jake didn't just win. He didn't just dominate. He transformed someone. And in the process, he showed everyone exactly what true strength looks like. The moment Jake and the reformed bodybuilder began their training session, The gym slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but the internet was exploding. Within 1 hour, videos from the scene had spread across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Every angle, every moment, every line Jake delivered was being clipped, shared, and edited with dramatic music. A viral compilation titled, "JakePaul Humbling a Bully for 8 Minutes Straight," hit 2 million views before Jake even finished his workout. But the story wasn't just about Jake's strength, or the kettlebell challenge, or the tiny arms insult. It was about the transformation. It was about the apology. It was about Jake turning conflict into growth. Comments flooded in. "I've never seen Jake handle something so mature. Respect. This is the best version of JakePaul we've ever seen." The bodybuilder apologizing almost made me cry. This wasn't a fight. This was character versus ego, and character won. Fitness influencers reacted. Boxing fans reacted. Even people who didn't like JakePaul reacted. And the surprising thing? Most of them were on Jake's side. Meanwhile, inside the gym, Jake and the Giant were mid-set. Jake coached him on form, breathing, posture. The Giant listened carefully, no attitude, no jokes, just pure humility. After their session ended, the bodybuilder finally spoke. "Jake, if this goes viral, people are going to roast me." Jake put a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe, but they'll also see you apologizing, owning it, growing. That's rare. That's powerful." The bodybuilder nodded slowly. "For the first time, I actually feel like changing." Jake smirked. "Good. Then it's worth it." As they left the gym together, a group of young lifters approached nervously. Jake, can we ask something?" "Sure," Jake said. One guy stepped forward. "What you said earlier about strength fading but character staying, that hit us, man." Another added, "We always saw you as entertainment, but today we saw something else." Jake smiled, humbled. "That's the goal. To be better every day. Not perfect, just better." A girl nearby asked the bodybuilder, "Are you really changing?" He nodded. "Yeah, starting now." Jake elbowed him playfully. "He's got potential. Big guy with a big future, if he keeps his ego small." Everyone laughed. When Jake finally walked outside, his phone buzzed nonstop. Calls, messages, notifications, his team, friends, even rival fighters were texting. "Bro, what did you do today?" This clip is everywhere. Respect, Jake. Seriously. Jake took a deep breath, looking up at the sky for a moment. Funny how a simple gym day had turned into a worldwide lesson. Later that night, Jake posted a single video on his own social media. Not a fancy edit, not a hype montage, just him talking directly to the camera. Strength isn't about muscles. Strength isn't about clout. Strength is choosing respect, even when someone disrespects you first. He paused. And if you ever feel insecure or overlooked or underestimated, remember, your character will always speak louder than your size. The video hit 10 million views overnight. But the best part? The next morning, the bodybuilder posted a video too, thanking Jake, apologizing publicly, and promising to become a positive person in the gym. Jake commented under the video, "Proud of you, brother. Keep going." And just like that, a rivalry turned into a lesson. An ego turned into humility. A viral moment turned into inspiration. And JakePaul? He walked away not as a fighter, but as a leader. The end.